3, 2, 1. Roll that beautiful bean footage.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. I'm LauraLee Rose with Missouri Enterprise, and welcome to our second TWI webinar. I don't know if you guys were with us last week, but we're glad you're back if you are. And we are very excited to have you here. I wish I could see your beautiful faces, but I can't. So, couple. If you were here last week, you heard a little bit about the history of TWI and how it came about as a result of World War II, and a brief overview of the steps. And today we're going to dive a little deeper into what I call the secret sauce of TWI, and that's the job breakdown. So I'm going to just show you a couple of slides, and we're going to make this into more of a forum for you to ask questions. We're going to actually walk through a couple steps to a job breakdown so you know what's going on, give you a little bit more information about that, and then just answer any questions. I would encourage you to use the chat function. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see chat. The first question I want to ask is, how do people in your company usually train employees for a job? Just put that in the chat function. I'm talking about not orientation, not the filling out of all the forms. I'm talking about when they actually get on the floor or where they're going to be, and you're actually training them to do the job. What kind of information do you give them? What kind of training do they get? So if you have an opportunity and you want to just throw that up in the chat, I'll appreciate that. I am going to start trying to share my screen with you. Let's see how that goes. And share screen. There it is. And here we go. There we are. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. So how does your company train employees to do a job? Just answer in the chat window. Anytime you have questions today, you can either just holler out, unmute yourself and holler, raise your hand. I've got people that are watching here for that, or just put some information in the chat window. So that's our question today. I was at a company once and I asked them, I said, how do you guys do your training? And they said, well, first we set them down we set new employees down with whatever job it is that they're going to do, and we give them the work instruction. And so I said, hey, can I see the work instruction? And they said, sure. And they handed me a 27-page document, and it was mostly text, unfortunately. And how much of that information do you think people were actually going to retain, especially when they got ready to do the job? In TWI, we talk all the time about the fact that we can't, the two tenets of TWI is that people can only take information in very short pieces, and that repetition is very important. So I'd be interested to hear how you guys do it. As you heard last week, this grew out of World War II, how to train housewives like Rosie the Riveter. It was very effective. This is the definition of job instruction we used. It's the way to get a person to quickly remember how to do a job. The A is important because we're talking about one-on-one. We're not training in big groups. How to do it correctly so that we don't have defects, safely so we don't have injuries, and conscientiously so people understand why they're doing things and they want to do it the right way. So here's our 4-step approach. As you know, most of the TWI modules are 4 steps. And the first is prepare the worker to learn. We talked a little bit about that last time. Present the operation, try out performance, and follow up. So here is the secret of the whole method, and that's the job instruction breakdown sheet. And that's what I wanted to really talk about today. So the breakdown sheet isn't a work instruction. It's not an SOP. It is a script. It is a cheat sheet for the trainer so that they can remember all the important steps, all the key points, and all the reasons. Sometimes we know a job so well, we've done it so long that we don't even think about doing it. We really may skip some steps that we just take for granted, or we don't really understand how to teach other people. So this is like having this job breakdown is actually like a cue card for the trainer. It helps them remember the steps, ensures that they don't forget anything. So what I'd like to do is kind of explain how this works. And so we are going to work on one of the elements of the job breakdown sheet. And we're actually going to go through a little bit here. First, I want you to look at what is under in this slide where it says important steps. It says a segment of the operation when something is happening to advance the work. Okay, so these are steps that are important. Okay, get all your stuff together is not an important step. It doesn't advance the work. So that's an important step. So that's whenever, and this, I'm going to show you how to do this. Under key points, there's 3 things that you have to remember. Anything that's going to make or break the job, anything that's going to injure the worker. This is a safety thing. And then anything that makes the work easier to do. They call it a trick or a knack or special timing or any kind of piece of special information. And I'm going to tell you that in every factory I've ever been in, there are things that are not written down on the work instructions that are actually this kind of information. People that have done the job have figured out tricks or knacks. It's not in the work instruction, and this is the stuff that makes things important or makes things easier. And then finally, the 3rd column over there is reasons for each key point. And that is, I think, a very important part because people need to know why. Why do I have to do it this way? So I'm going to go through each of these, and we're actually going to do a couple of lines of the example that we do in the TWI class. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, make you look at me again. And we are going to do what is called the fire underwriter's knot. We have a TWI class, you know, the old fire underwriter's knot. This is a knot that is used in electrical applications. This is a twisted piece of 2 strands, twisted piece of electrical cord. It's got copper wires inside. You can't see them because I've used Plastidip so they don't fray. So there are actually work instructions for this job. There are 13 steps, 160 some odd words. And in the class, I tell someone how to do that and then hand them this piece of cord and say, now tie the knot. That never work. And then I show somebody how to do it without talking. That doesn't work. Showing and telling alone doesn't work. So I'm gonna kind of walk through this, and I've got behind me the job instruction breakdown sheet. You'll notice it's got what advances the work, what are those 3 things that are key points, and then I've got the reasons. Okay, so I'm going to start first of all with starting to do this job. Okay, so I'm gonna ask some questions as I go along. Okay, so the first thing I have to do is this. So do you think that has advanced the work? Well, I can't really do the job unless I untwist it. Okay, so what have I done? Well, I untwisted this piece of cord and I straightened it. So the first step is going to be called untwist and straighten. So I'm going to add that right here. Untwist and straighten. You see that on that slide I showed you as well. Okay, so that's a pretty important step because I really can't advance the work until I have this untwisted and straightened. Now, the next thing I have to do is I'm going to do this. Does that advance the work? You guys see that? Yeah, it's advanced the work. Okay, so I'm going to call that, that's my right loop. So I'm just going to put make right loop. Nope, that's the second important step, sorry. Okay, and then I'm going to go on and I'm going to make the knot, I'm going to tie the knot, and I'm going to do all the important steps first. Then I'm going to go back through, and I'm only going to do a couple because of time today. Okay, so now I'm going to say, okay, what are the key points? And I'm going to ask 3 questions. Okay, I'm going to do the first step, and then I'm going to recite those 3 questions. Okay, so here's my first step. My first step is untwist and straighten. Okay. Is there anything that's special about that that can make or break the job? Well, yeah, I don't want to untwist the whole thing. I want to do about 6 inches. So that's a key point. What happens if it's not 6 inches? Well, if it's not 6 inches, and people say, do you have to measure it? You know what? This is about 6 inches. So it doesn't have to be exactly, but if I don't have 6 inches, I don't have enough room for the next. If I only do about 2 inches, it's real hard to tie a knot when you've only got 2 inches. It's almost impossible, okay? If I have a whole bunch, okay, if I have a foot, say, it gets a little unwieldy and it's hit me in the face. It's really hard to tie that knot too, okay? So I want about 6 inches. That's a key point. So I'm going to write that here. About 6 inches. And this is, remember, this is just a key. This is just a cue card or a cheat sheet for me to remember that when I'm teaching this, I'm going to go through all of these. And I'm going to go through them all and just do this. The next time I'm going to add the key points, and the next time I go through, I'm going to add all the reasons. Okay. So now let's talk about, okay, so I've got my 6 inches here. Okay, and my second important step, I always hold up my fingers, my second important step, because I'm saying it and I'm showing you, and that's that connection that's making in our brain, is to make a right loop. Okay, so is there anything here that's going to make or break the job, injure the worker, or make it easier to do? And in that last one, making it easier to do is like, okay, that's about 6 inches. So I know that I don't have to get a ruler. Okay. So now if I'm gonna turn around this way. So I'm making that right loop. Okay. So is there anything there that is going to make or break the job, injure the worker, or make it easier to do? And the answer is, yeah, it's got to be, when I make that loop, it's got to be in front of that main strand. So does that make or break the job? Well, what if I put it behind? Let's see if I can tie the knot. It doesn't even make a knot. Okay. So that's a key point because it makes or breaks the job. I don't think there's anything on here that's going to hurt the worker, and there's really not a knack or a trick. So I'm going to put in front of, just front of main strand. Okay. So I go through all of the rest of the steps. And I do, okay, so then I make a left loop, and then I take it behind, and I have some tips and knacks, and my tip for the last one is to put my fingers in it and pull it down tight. I've got key points now, and I've got important steps for every thing. So then I go back through, and I go to the why, and I think the why is the most important piece, because I think the why is, okay, why do I have to do it that way? And for every key point, I need to have a why. Okay, so let's go back. Untwist and straighten. First important step is untwist and straighten. My key point is about 6 inches. Okay, why does it need to be 6 inches? It needs to be 6 inches so the person who is attaching, it's actually the base of a lamp, the person who is actually attaching the base of the lamp in the next step has enough cord, has enough of this stuff that he can use. Okay, so I'm just going to put here enough for next top. And that's my step number 1. Okay, step number 2 was make a right loop. And I want it in front of the main strand. Okay, why do I do that? Well, if I don't put it in the front, what do I say? If I put it in the back, it doesn't even make a knot. So it's just got to be that the only way to get the knot to tie correctly. Okay, and that's my second step. And I keep going. There's 5 steps to this process that we teach. And it's amazing that as soon as you get finished with these breakdowns and you actually use the process, people can really and truly understand what is going on. So how do you figure out what the job breakdown is? We talked a little bit about that last time. I'm going to go back to my slides and figure out how to do that. And we do that by, hold on, we have to find the person that is expert at doing the job. Now, sometimes what we find is that the industrial engineers are writing the work instructions, and they don't necessarily know how to do the job. If I've got somebody training that is going to train somebody, I want them to know how to do the job and how to do the job correctly. I've also seen supervisors who are doing the training, and they don't do the job the same way as the person who's doing the training or actually doing the job. So you have to find the person that's doing the job, who's the expert, the person who does it every day. You have to watch them perform it correctly. You have to create the breakdown. You have to say, show me and tell me what you're doing. And then when you see them advance the work, you say, okay, stop. What did you just do? Was it important? And what do you want to call it? And then when you get to the key points, you say, okay, does that make or break the job? Is it going to injure somebody? Or is it going to, is there a knack or a trick? And that's where the true gold in this whole process is the knacks or the tricks. You then create a breakdown. You try it out on somebody. I love to be able, when people make breakdowns and I'm reviewing them, I'm like, okay, I'm the new employee. Show me the job. And if I can't do it, then you probably have left something out. And then you train the employee. And then if it's not right, you change it. This is all based on the whole idea of having standard work. And we had a great question last time about what if I have 2 people that are doing it and are doing it differently? How do I figure out what the standard work is? You get those 2 people together and you have them figure out what is the right way to do it. And that's how it works. And like I said last time, if the worker hasn't learned, the only person whose fault it is the instructor. The only person. Here are TWI instructors. I want to open it up for questions. Does anybody have any questions? I'm not hearing any. I'm not seeing any. Not seeing any chats.
LauraLee, I had a text message actually come in from someone who's participating. I don't know if their chat feature is just disabled or not working, but they want to know, how does a job instruction differ from an SOP? Would you mind answering that?
No, not at all. An SOP is a standard operating procedure. It's very similar to a work instruction. In my experience, it has the time factor in it usually. I think that the job breakdown, the most important thing to remember about the job breakdown is that it is for the trainer. It's not for the worker. It's actually something that I use. Here is the job breakdown sheet for the fire underwriter's knot that I just did. And Amy, I think that you had some blank sheets like this that we can send to people. This is simply for you as a trainer to use. Forget anything, because like I said, we have all done things that we do them every day. We don't even think about what we're doing. If you've ever tried to teach someone to drive and you get in a car and you're like, okay, so what do I have to tell you first? These are great to use for training your kids how to drive, actually. And the other thing that we teach is the first time you go through it, you'll notice I fold this paper so I can only see the important steps. That's all I tell them. The second time I show them and tell them, I include the key points. I'm also going to repeat those important steps, so they've heard them twice now. And the third time I go through it, I'm going to add the reasons. So now they've heard those important steps 3 times. They've heard the key points twice, and they've heard the reasons. And then I'm going to ask them to go through it. I'm not going to give them this piece of paper. I'm going to say, okay, so because of the repetition and the short pieces of information, I'm going to give them the opportunity to show me that they understood what I just did. And people are going to balk every time at all that repetition because we don't think it's necessary. And I guarantee that it is. We only learn through repetition. Think about learning how to throw a baseball or swim or ride a bike. You have to do the repetitions. So any other questions? That's a great question. Love it.
And just to let everyone know, unless you unmuted or muted yourself, you are all, for the most part, unmuted. So if you would like to ask a question, you can do that at this moment in time. And I know we had someone join, I believe it was Mary, who came in late. Hi, Mary. We will send you a recording of this. I know you came towards the tail end, so don't worry. We'll make sure you get that information. Okay. The same person did ask, if I want to train my employees on job instruction, how long does that typically take? I mean, I know you just gave the example of teaching someone, your child how to drive, and
Okay,
very scary situation. But yes, could you kind of take us through that process?
You're approaching that too, aren't you, Amy? You're approaching that, teaching the child how to drive?
Let's just say COVID has presented many interesting situations for my family. I have almost a 15-year-old, and yes, she does get to take it around the cul-de-sac. But I may need this job instruction. Don't tell anybody. My husband's an attorney, so I have him to protect us if we get in trouble. But
okay. I forgot. Okay, how long does it take to train? Now that I need to understand. So if we are in a situation, how long does it take us to teach someone how to do this method? Or how long does it take after we teach it? How long does it take them to train someone?
It wasn't specific, so maybe you can answer both of those questions.
I'll answer both of them. Okay?
Yeah.
Our TWI sessions where we actually teach up to 10 people in your organization how to train is 10 hours. And it's 2 hours a day for 5 consecutive days. And so we practice what we preach on that, giving them little pieces of information. Because anybody that sat through 6 or 8 hours of training, and I'm guilty, I've done it to Six Sigma people, you don't retain it all. So we give, and the other thing that we do is we have you practice. Everybody has to come in and bring something easy to demonstrate. They teach somebody else in the class. Everybody has to be a teacher. Everybody has to be a leader. In order for you to teach this method on the floor, it's also really important that you, it depends on what you're teaching them. Job breakdowns need to be, if there are more than 7 to 10 steps, then you need to break that up. For long operations, we have a whole separate way that we do that. We talk a little bit about how to do that training if it's in a very loud, noisy environment. So honestly, people think it takes time to do that repetition, but you're actually, and for this, I can train somebody and get through all those steps in about 15 minutes. And with the repetitions, me doing it 3 or 4 times, them doing it 3 or 4 times, the whole thing, and getting them prepared to learn, the whole thing takes maybe 10 to 15 minutes total. But the repetition is really, really important.
Okay.
So the other thing that
Probably did because my internet.
I just got a private message to me. One of the people that's on here said that you're absolutely right about testing the procedure. You can't just write it in a room and think that it's going to work. You have to use it. You have to go out and test it. You have to test it on. I always say take the blonde from accounting out there. And I've gotten in trouble for saying that. Not going to be politically incorrect, but take the person from the office and try to teach them the job. And if they can understand it, then or if they have questions, that's how you get to improve your job breakdown. And that it's also important that you document that training, especially if you have an ISO program. Make sure you've got a sign-off sheet that you've trained them. And that's part of that training matrix that we talked about last time too. And so it can be overwhelming when you start thinking, oh gosh, I've got a whole bunch of these job breakdown things that I've got to make for my entire plan. One of the things say is okay, so that's overwhelming. I've got, oh, you know, it's that Home Alone face. So what we do is we say, okay, so think about what you have to train first. When you make that job,
It's right on top of us.
on that job responsibility training matrix, who am I training first? What do I have to have a job breakdown for at the very beginning? If I've got somebody retiring, I'm going to want to know what that job is so I can capture that stuff that's in their head, because I will guarantee people that have been with you a long time have tricks and knacks that are in their head and stuff that makes the job easier to do. And you got to capture that. That's that organizational knowledge that ISO talks about. What other questions? Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate that. Anything else? It's 10:26. We try to.
Do you have any, LauraLee, words of wisdom for those manufacturers who are considering either transitioning some of their products or services to, for instance, help with the PPE medical need, or maybe the product that they're selling is just not selling? Like I've used this before. If you make party hats, it's probably not the right time to be making party hats. So in that situation, do you have any insight, or, like I said, some words of wisdom on how TWI can really be of service for them in transitioning?
Well, I think that the answer to that question is, I'm going to go back to the initial beginning of this whole method was World War II, when every factory was changing what they were making. They were starting to make war materials. They were starting to make jets and parachutes. So they had to, whenever you have a new product, it's a great time to use TWI. You've got a new product and processes, even if you've got people, different things you're making. We're seeing it a lot in, it increases your flexibility for cross-training. So that you can flex we were seeing it a lot when people were just trying to get folks in the door and getting them up to speed quickly in the whole environment that we came from in 3 months ago, where you couldn't find people to work. So the ones that you got, you wanted to get them up to speed very quickly. That's about all the wisdom I've got today.
Well, and I think that transitions nicely too, and just even after we recover from this current pandemic and we're operational again, there's always going to be something that causes disruptions, whether it's this or maybe a new technology, the workforce, working with millennials that are like, hey, if that doesn't have a computer or technology, I don't know how to use it. So again, this would be a really good resource to turn to, right? To continue to train, cross-train. Okay, just want to make that point, if that's applicable.
And I want to make sure that you understand that when we do the training, we're training your trainers. We are not training your people. We're teaching you how to fish. We actually are training you on how to use this method that was so successful and has been so successful, not only in World War II, but all throughout the Toyota production system. And so it's a very proven method. It works. And so we're going to give you that tool in your toolbox so that you can use it from now on. And it's a really great method, and it's so simple, but sometimes simple things are hard. That's my wisdom, real wisdom.
Part of the playbook here, right?
Absolutely. So before we go, I want to remind everybody that's on here that we have a no-cost one-on-one TWI virtual session with me or April or Dave, our other TWI certified experts. And we can work with you to help you come up with a work instruction for a job that you have in your facility. We can help you complete one. We can help you with the breakdown. Amy is going to be sending out follow-up emails to this particular webinar. And all we ask is that you give us that little head start by filling out a brief survey, which helps us understand your needs. And then we'll be in touch to help schedule. And it'll probably be Zoom, GoToMeeting, whatever. And then I also want to tell you about something else that we've got coming up. We're launching tomorrow. We are looking forward to reopening the economy and all the businesses. So we're doing first steps to reopening, and that's tomorrow. It's a webinar and a checklist. We have a COVID-19 response team, and they have put together overview of steps that your company can take you can take now, so you're ready for the reopening when we get things back to whatever normal is. It's a high-level checklist that's applicable to all different kinds of businesses. We'll make sure to include a link to that session, and the checklist and follow-up email. And these are all free services. We are doing this as a benefit to you. The only string attached is that we ask you to do this survey so we can report our efforts to the federal government, our federal partners. And I really thank you for joining us today. It means a lot to me when people actually show up to stuff that I'm talking about. I look forward to connecting with you soon. If you want to take advantage of that free one-on-one TWI, all you have to do is let us know. So thank you. Got anything else? Anybody else have any last call?
Last call.
Going once, going twice.
Thank you, LauraLee. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll be in touch with a follow-up
Appreciate it.
email. Stay safe,
Okay.
stay sane. Thank you.
Thank you very much.